start small and start now instead of waiting for life's ultimatums like a cancer diagnosis or burnout or whatever your wake up call of choice is. Why waiting for those things? We could be starting now and stepping into those someday when projects. And I also call them soul-led goals, slowly, while you have, these other life circumstances that may have you feel like you're trapped in your today's circumstances, but stepping into that future version of yourself now.
I'm Lori Aikman, and I'm a functional health practitioner helping busy working professional moms boost their energy, lose weight, and balance hormones naturally.
Well, okay, Kristin, thank you so much for being on the Rising from Burnout podcast today. I'm so excited to have you here and to share your story. We obviously, I just read your bio, but tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, maybe how you got doing the work that you do, and where do you live again? Remind me where you're located.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'm in Seattle.
In Seattle. Okay,
yes.
Got it.
Yes. Okay, thanks for having me. Yes. Okay, so you read my bio, but here's what I do. I really help I coach people who have urgency around what I call their someday when projects. So I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, some also in corporate that are sort of pursuing entrepreneurship, that
side
have
hustles.
side hustle, like lots of ideas, lots of visions that they want to make space for in their life, but they're putting it off until someday. So I help them step into that now instead of waiting until someday. So it sounds a little bit like someday when I have more time, what I really want to do.
When the kids are older, when when I have a different job. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I can kind of tell you a little bit about my story and my own someday when project, which was my business. So I have a corporate background in project management and strategy deployment. And what I did was back in like the 2009, I had gone through my coach training, probably 2008. And then it was the 2009 recession. I was doing business coaching and consulting, and my husband and I were both self-employed. And I turned one of my biggest coaching clients into a part-time job. And then I end up leaving that for 8 years. So my business became my someday when project. I really thought that I was just going to wait that out, like the 1 year or whatever until that. But at the time I wanted like kind of the flexibility to be with my kids. And that was sort of my reason for waiting. And then as life would have it, I am a breast cancer survivor. So multiple years later, I felt like I couldn't leave my corporate job because I needed the health insurance. So it's sort of like my excuses of yesterday turned into new excuses of tomorrow. And I just think that is continually happening. And while those feel like real life reasons to not leave a corporate job, I also think I didn't need to wait as long as I did.
Yeah.
And what I like to do is teach people to start small and start now instead of waiting for life's ultimatums like a cancer diagnosis or burnout or whatever your wake up call of choice is. Why waiting for those things? We could be starting now and stepping into those someday when projects. And I also call them soul-led goals, slowly, while you have, these other life circumstances that may have you feel like you're trapped in your today's circumstances, but stepping into that future version of yourself now.
That's so good. That's so good. I feel like there was so much gold in what you just said. So your own personal story. Yeah. You said the cancer diagnosis really was the
reason. Yeah.
For you, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it was like, I might not have a someday. So why am I waiting? And we all might not have a someday. So you don't really need that kind of a wake up call to know that.
Exactly.
You never know what's going to happen. But for me, it was like, I really need to get back to what I want to be doing. And what it was a lot of like productivity shame, I call it. So I work with my clients on that, where that is just this nagging feeling in the back of your mind that you didn't you're not spending time on what you really do want to be spending time on. And that's a huge energy drain that you're telling yourself that all the time. And that's the way it was for me, for sure. And then after having, kind of gone through treatment and everything and hiring a coach and getting super clear on where I wanted to be, that was, my story.
Wow. And so timely, both my brother and my niece, so his daughter, were in car accidents yesterday. So weird, both on the same, both like totaled their cars. They're both okay.
Wow.
But it just made me think of
And separately?
They were he was driving from where we live. He was across the state and driving home early in the morning, and it was like foggy.
Right.
And then my niece, somebody pulled out in front of her, and she had to swerve to avoid them, and then ended up wrecking like in the ditch.
Oh my God.
So it just made me think of, you never know what is going to happen, and putting off and putting off. And so I want to pick out you and I were chatting this, of course, a little bit before we hit record, but you were saying you find that a lot of times when people are coming to work with you, they might have hit that breaking point, that maybe they were in burnout is finally what leads them to go, okay, like, let's make some day today.
Yeah, exactly. The common theme is really like, I'm done with my own excuses. And sometimes it is, they've been through the burnout thing. Like I finally, am handling my health and now I feel like I can do this, but it often took kind of that like life ultimatum thing. And sometimes that is burnout. So I think that's where our synergies might be, is some of the people that have been through that or are just on the other side of that, or just kind of identifying that.
Yeah.
They are ready. But I think if, and this might be some of your clients, is they know that that you could see the symptoms coming, and maybe we could start earlier, or we don't even need any symptoms and we could be doing this now.
Yes. What do you think, and why do you think we don't act sooner? Do you think, just from your perspective as a coach?
I think it's easier. I think it's like a societal thing. I think people feel like they have to do the grind and but this is what I wanted. I hear that a lot. This is what I wanted, was this career and this family, and it's not all what I envisioned it would be. It has me run ragged. Right. But I think the reason why they don't is because they feel like they can't. And that's sort of me too, right? I felt like I couldn't. I need the health insurance. I need to be able to be present with my kids and have that flexibility and have that, part-time job income or whatever it is. Sometimes I think trapped in like these circumstances where it's like a steady paycheck, health insurance, these things that, while I know they're real, so, and it feels like a real blocker, but at the same time, there are things that we could be doing to like step into it slowly, as opposed to this black and white. So I think it's kind of like society,
like all or nothing.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And then I'm like, there's so many things you've said that like apply to so many areas of life. We can be all or nothing and so many other, with our health, like I'm either like on the diet or off the diet, or, and then just letting.
I think time is the other big one. I don't have time. And so that's also all or nothing, because I could find anyone the amount of time that you need in order to do these things, but it feels like you don't have any. And that, it can be a blocker. And then it's also kind of a clue, if you feel like that it's an area to look at.
If you feel like you don't have
time,
like, I don't have time. I find that even with my clients, a lot of times I'm really encouraging them to make time for self-care, and this is the reason I do this work is like, I see all this stuff I've walked through and I can see things in my clients because I can see it. I saw it in myself too.
Right.
And still, it's still, it takes effort to make time for myself, but I hear that a lot of like, I don't have time. I don't have time, because of the kids, because of my job, because of I don't, and I think too, which is part of the motivation behind this podcast, is like the mindset.
Yeah.
Because it's not really that we don't have time. It's just that we're not, it's our, a matter of priorities, right?
Yeah. And I think it takes a little bit of teasing out of what does that mean? And then when you look at it closely, it could be like, are you over delivering in certain areas of your life? I mean, because sometimes that's kind of like a coping mechanism, whether it's over delivering at work, over delivering at home, doing a lot of the things that the kids could be doing, not having boundaries with your partner, taking everything on. And then there's like kind of like a perfectionism thing too, that sometimes plays into it. And then it's like, if you could scale back on some of that stuff, I mean, you could get like at least a half an hour extra a day, not to mention, scrolling social media, not looking at Netflix. I mean, you can usually find some time in there.
Yeah. Wow. So how I'm just curious, when you do work with clients, is it I would assume with anything, there's a lot of mindset work that you have to do?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is around a couple of different key areas. So one of them being that productivity shame that I talked about. So that feeling of, I never get to anything. I never get to what I want to be working on. The day just passes by and I haven't worked on the thing that I really want to be working on. And just kind of the beating yourself up about your productivity is one area of mindset work that we do. And a lot of that is around moving your attention to what you have done, which is not a natural thing. We're way better at telling ourselves what we haven't done.
Yes.
But when you look at your wins in your day and celebrate even the smallest little things that you have done, that kind of compounds, as opposed to if you're doing this productivity shame thing all the time, that compounds and it becomes true. You never get anything done. And so that's kind of a retraining of the brain that we do. And then the other common themes are really just, I mean, there's kind of the regular like imposter syndrome stuff, and then the who am I to do X, Y, and Z, that sort of thing. And I think there is something around just this, well, I think it is really the time mindset, sort of an abundance of time, shifting into abundance of time as opposed to time scarcity.
Like, I have all the time I need. Like, what do you mean? If somebody has never heard of like, that concept of scarcity, lack, and abundance mindset, like what?
Well, and it's similar to what I just said about the productivity shame. When you believe that's true, that you never have enough time, then you don't have enough time. If you're continuously talking about, oh, you are just, I have too many plates in the air. I have too many balls in the air, too many plates spinning. That becomes your internal dialogue. It becomes your reality. So when you shift into noticing the spaciousness in your day when you have it, I mean, and maybe you don't have it very often, but you could create that just in little pockets so that, maybe once a month you have one day that's focused on you or something, and then feeling how that feels and noticing that, and then finding yourself. I mean, it's similar to gratitude, right? Where you find the things that you're grateful for, and then more of that shows up. When you find the spaciousness in your day, then more of that can also show up.
Yeah. Wow. I was looking online to search real quick. I was trying to think of who said the quote of, I'm totally going to mess it up, but like basically, or it's, something bias, where
the negativity bias of the brain.
Okay. Is that basically what you will find evidence for what you believe?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
I'm blanking on what true.
Yeah. And
that's called.
when you want the time abundance, which is the same, this is kind of like, it's also like money mindset stuff, which is another thing that often is part of my work. So you can look at where there is abundance in your life. Do you have abundance of love, relationships, right? And then abundance can be across all. But yeah, you can find the evidence of what you're looking for. But what we do is we find the evidence that it's true. Like, I'm not good enough. And let me just find the evidence of me not being good enough. And then that sort of snowballs.
Yeah. Wow. So good. So to take it back to, I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking, gosh, this is the coaching that you're doing would help people move out of burnout right there too, of like, just this whole, time and the productivity and all of that. But do you find that, your clients, are any of them dealing with health struggles along with this too? Because I would think if they're having a hard time making, if they're doing someday when in like this, I'm assuming it's a lot of business ideas or things like that.
It usually
if they're putting
is.
that off, are they putting off other things? Are they putting off the self, the health and the self-care?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's sort of like a procrastination thing. And often they are putting off the self-care too, which is what I kind of start with, is managing your energy and helping them with what are your energy drains, what is the energy fuel that you need. And a lot of times that does involve health. And I would say that some of my clients are struggling with health things, and whether it be burnout or I could see them being on the verge of burnout, there's sort of both happening sometimes. And so moving into taking care of yourself and your body and just literally like the basics. I mean, water, movement, nutrition, those kinds of things is often where we start, because you kind of can't do anything until you're doing those basic things.
Exactly. I know.
Yeah. Sleep would be the other one.
Yes.
And that's a big one. Yeah.
I know. And we hear those things and we go, oh, I know, but then we're not actually doing them, right?
And what is that? So I don't know. I am fascinated by that topic, that our brain just goes to, I already know that. I already know that. But then my next question is always like, and are you doing anything about it? Are you practicing because I think that hydration is like the perfect example of that. And exercise, your doctor.
Everyone does not drink enough water. Or most people do not drink enough water.
Yeah. And then so our brains go to, oh, I already know that. But it's like, we want some other fix. We want something, I think we want something faster, or we want something more magical strategy that
I agree.
It's like, that's not good enough. I guess that is sort of the all or nothing thing, but that is, it's a block.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is so much. Yes. I would agree. Like, because then we're getting stuck in our head, like somehow our thinking or overthinking about things is keeping us from actually taking action and then getting the result we really want in our body, because we think knowing and doing being two very different things.
Yeah. And I think we sort of think that it needs to be harder than that in a way too. Like, it can't just be as simple as me drinking water, which is also what I hear when I am helping people with taking consistent action. And we start with literally taking 15 minutes of action a day. The brain does the same thing. Oh, it can't be that easy. I can't do a day. But if you're not doing anything now, just try the 15 minutes a day and see what happens. And
it's almost 2 hours a week that you weren't doing before.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wonderful. So, and so you may have just touched on that. So when you do see that your clients are like in burnout or on the edge of burnout, you're coaching them through those types of things, so we're looking at
basics, and then the boundaries, I think, are another really big one. So do you have to be doing it all? Do you have to be doing it all times like 1,000 to this like over the top level?
Yes.
And if they have a job, typically the people that I coach are sort of that, like they're going to deliver at over 100%. And could they just dial it back a little bit? And their 80% is actually somebody else's 100%, and nobody knows the difference.
Yeah.
But what does that feel like to do that?
Mhm.
And then practicing those boundaries. And then the boundaries can be at work or with your clients. If you have your own business, it can also be at home. And just, getting support from other people in your household and then holding those boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. The boundaries is so huge. So huge. Yeah. And you were saying, what were the phrase you used before? Something to, burnout to boundaries, burnout to boundaries.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the burnout is sort of a clue, in my opinion, that you need to have at least some boundaries around whether it's your health or all the things that you're doing. And you can use that as, where you don't feel the way you want to feel, and kind of reverse engineer it and ask yourself, in an ideal world, what it would look like. And then, and then often the answer is, but I don't have anyone that could help me. I don't have anyone. And just really challenging that and asking if that's true, and getting creative about that. If you feel like you have to be the one, driving the kids everywhere, could you ask for full support or help from a neighbor? I mean, there's always like creative ways that you can do this stuff, but often our go-to is, I can't, it has to be me.
Yeah. And it's just so funny. It's like all mindset. It all goes back to mindset, right?
Yeah.
And you work with some men, mainly with women, but you do have some male clients as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find they're not struggling with these same things?
No, they're not struggling, not as much, at least the ones I work with. Yeah. They are struggling a little bit more with like the too many ideas and not executing them as much. So that's kind of a similarity, but not as much the burnout. But maybe that over delivering, I see that across both men and women. Yeah.
Got it. Where you have to, go above and beyond. And do you think that, I hear other people, coaches and things like that talk about, that really being like a codependency. And we really, if somebody's paying us money for a service, we have to, it's like if we went, I don't know, I'm trying to think. You went and you bought like a Target purse, but whoever was making the purses feels like they have to give you a designer purse, like,
oh, right. Yeah.
Just like I heard somebody else say it. It's like, you feel like if somebody gives you money for your service, you're on the hook to like give and make sure and like drag the person across the finish line
when that could become codependent. Yes, exactly. Because they aren't going to have you forever. And so isn't it better to train them to sort of like be able to do this stuff on their own, as opposed to like building a codependency where they're relying on you? Because then when they're done, they're just going to need to rely on somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. That's definitely something I've had to learn myself, and I definitely can identify with people pleasing and codependency tendencies, that I can look back and see years and years, even before, being in business and stuff. So, yeah. Well, okay. So to kind of like bring it back in. So I feel like we've hit so many gems in this conversation, but we talked about like seeing where the boundaries, that is a sign of burnout, where we're not really well boundaried in our life, how we're maybe not doing the basics of self-care, that feeling like, you don't have enough time. Gosh, this is so good. I mean, I know you're someday when you work with clients, on an idea, on a business, but I mean, this is like someday when.
Oh, it could be your health. I mean, it could be someday when my kids are grown, I am going to stop working at 5 o'clock every day, or I don't know, like certain things that you say you're going to do for your health. I'm going to be better about going to the gym.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had women when I was working just in regular family practice. I remember getting patients that would come in, and it was like the kids had left for college and were finally out of the house. And so now they were like actually going to take care of their body and go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And I was,
And then the fascinating thing is, I bet, I mean, I don't know, this is just the pattern I see. I don't know about you, but when the kids get out of the house, does something else happen that has you putting off your healthcare? I mean, typically that's kind of which is sort of like an upper limit problem, I think.
yeah.
And it's like, so that's what I mean about like yesterday's excuses kind of turn into tomorrow's. There's always something. So
Yeah.
don't keep waiting. And then something else might happen that has you not going to the doctor and all
Exactly.
of that.
Or I found is that when you put it off and put it off and put it off, at least from a health standpoint, then like, I think I can think of one woman in particular. It was like, she hadn't gone to the doctor, had any blood work, things like that in so long. And when she finally came in, it was like, okay, you have high blood pressure, you have high cholesterol, you're pre-diabetic, and we were like having to chase our tail now with all this stuff. And like, okay, you need, where if she hadn't have put those things off, then we wouldn't be, in such a place.
Right.
Which, yeah,
and
speaks
then
to the
I
whole
think,
burnout thing too.
Yeah. And if it's like because of the kids, for instance, like, I'm going to take care of my health stuff when my kids are grown. What are we teaching our kids then?
Yes.
I mean, don't you want your kids to stay up on their healthcare?
Exactly.
And then, and also what kind of a mom are you being if that's what you've done? And then, right. I mean, you could be so much more to them if you were taking care of those things, which it's kind of counterintuitive and maybe counter what we feel like we were taught, because we feel like we were taught like self-sacrifice is like how you show love or something.
Yes. I always think of, especially, just we've been talking about them different roles men and women play. And I just think of that of what am I modeling for my daughter? And I do not want to model. Don't put yourself last, do everything for everyone else. Don't care about yourself, which I think in certain circles or cultures, that's what you should do. That's being a good mom or wife or person or whatever is put your needs last. Yeah. It's selfish if you put yourself first.
Right.
And I think that can keep so many people stuck. So, okay. So if somebody is interested in, they've been saying someday when, and maybe they've had enough of their excuses and they want to, to get your help and get your coaching what is that? Well, I just said coaching, but what does it look like, when you work with clients, and how would somebody reach out to you and get started?
Yeah, so I have a coaching program called Execute with Ease, and all the information is on my website, KristinSwansonConsulting.com. But what it looks like is typically we have like a one-on-one at first. We talk through where you want to be, what your Someday When project is, what's stopping you from getting there. And then we put together like a roadmap, basically. And then it's ongoing coaching, both in the group and one-on-one setting. I am all about like mining for your blocks. So we've kind of talked a lot about like mindset blocks, right?
Yeah.
So I like I said, my corporate background is in strategy deployment. So I'm all about having that plan and, kind of breaking it down. So it's bite-sized chunks that you would take regularly in that like 15 minutes a day, like I talked about. But while you're doing that, noticing all the blocks that are standing in your way. And so I also coach people over an app called Voxer, which I know you're familiar with, but not everybody knows what Voxer is.
Yes.
That really looks like people being able to voice message me on, in the midst of their day when it's like, this is what I mean, Kristin, I do not have time. This is all the things that are standing in my way. And then we work through it kind of real time to find them that time to take the consistent action. And then it's a real kind of, like I said, retraining of their brain to focus on what they have done. And then that really compound instead of that productivity shame. And then, it's similar to what we were talking about, like about not being like that codependent relationship, I really want to teach people how to be able to use some of these tools on their own and
Yes.
overcome some of this mindset stuff on their own and learn how to. So the methodology is really around like going into your future vision. What does it look like when this thing is done? Who is the person that you have become once this someday when fully executed? And then
So
what's
good.
the identity of the person? Like, what are the habits that they have? What do they spend their day doing? What does their day look like? And stepping into that now before you even have done the thing, it's probably the fastest way to get there. And then we talk about like, what are the possible action steps that person could have taken to get there? And then continually taking some of those actions, but not having it be like, oh, it has to be the right actions in the perfect sequence of, you don't have to know how exactly that I'm going to launch a podcast, for instance. I think that's a good one because people feel blocked by like all the technology and stuff. You don't have to know exactly, but just starting to take some of those steps and then watching the compound effect, but also the synchronicities that show up when you continually take action. And the universe kind of gives you like the little path to take, and things start to come to you. And then that's sort of a rinse and repeat process. So that's kind of what it looks like in a nutshell. Yeah.
That's amazing. My gosh. And what are some, you were saying the podcast. Yeah. What are some examples of projects that your clients work on with you?
Yeah. So podcast is an example. A online course is an example. They want to switch from, or sometimes it's like, I want to switch into coaching. They maybe used to do workshop facilitation. They want to do coaching, or they do coaching and they want to do group coaching. And it's really like or they want to have a social media presence. That's another one, or update their branding. Things that it's usually like a new line of business that they know is going to be the biggest change, that's going to make the biggest difference, but they're putting it off because there's so much resistance around it. I mean, really is why. But it's often because of like the bread and butter business, like that revenue's coming in. And so I don't have time to pursue this new thing, even though I know a podcast is going to make a big difference on my business. I don't have time for that because like my day-to-day stuff eats away at all my time. So yeah.
Wow. This is so good. So good. I'm actually just sitting here and thinking of a personal example. So my son started preschool in March, and we all got sick for it was like almost 4 weeks straight by the time like he got sick. It went through the house. He got sick again. And then finally everybody's back to normal. And similar thing, I do one-on-one coaching, but I just kind of through that process, like my own little like month of burnout, I guess, or just, our coaches or our coaches, our kids being sick. I went, okay, I really need to shift in my business because this isn't, my kids are homesick. So so really similar to sounds like what you're talking about.
Shift like into a different business model that isn't as reliant on you, the one-on-one.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's another, I think that would be another category in itself, is just having a business model that complements who you are and style, and whether that be, I mean, I lately have noticed a lot of my clients have like multiple business ideas and multiple URLs that they've bought, and that they, in their future vision, they've got like this umbrella business with all these businesses underneath it.
Yeah.
So how do we get them elevated to the point of overseeing all of that instead of being in it in kind of the day-to-day of the business, the one business that they have now? So that, to me, that's kind of similar in that it's like creating it's to support your ideal lifestyle too.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. That's wonderful.
And I do think there's like a magic sweet spot. Like if you're feeling called to do that, if that desire is in you, then that's probably the best thing also for your clients too, to do it in that way and in create that container that would work for you, because then you're going to bring your best self to the client
Yes.
and your kids because you've designed it that way. And then it's better for them too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Then you're not, because you were talking about resistance, of like, if something's not feeling really good and really aligned for us, then we're going to resist it.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not going to be. Yes. So you talked about, your website. Everybody can check out KristinSwansonConsulting.com. And then looks like you're also active on, well, I know you are, but you're active on Instagram.
Yeah.
So we'll link your handle, and then you have a Make It Happen planner. That's awesome.
So that's free on my website. So just go there. That's a really good way to just kind of get started and break things down into a plan to make it happen and start small.
Kind of like you're talking about that roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Yes. So go check that out. I'm going to check that out myself. I'm like, I could use a little nudge, a little more. I love how you said the roadmap, we're just really creating the roadmap for your projects, your Sunday project.
Yeah. And then my whole style around it is like, have that plan and start taking the steps, like I said, because that's where the magic happens, is continuously taking those steps and not getting too attached to the plan, like not having it be a rigid thing that you're sticking to, but just have it be a way to get started and then consistently showing up.
Wonderful. Awesome. So good. So good. Thank you, Kristin. This has been such a fun conversation. So, I mean, I keep thinking about again, we're tying in a lot to business, but so all these principles you talked about, just apply to your health, apply to your parenting, your anything in your life, really. So
yes. Thank you for having me.